Hello, Miami. You're watching 305 Sports Now, your home podcast and channel for all things Miami sports related. I am Will.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to 305 Sports Now. Once again, I am your host, Will. Thank you so much for watching. And with all the Canes coverage I did this past weekend, of course, I talked a lot about the draft. I made some appearances on several talk shows as well. And one of the talk shows that I made an appearance on is from the Finstanza Sports Network. And we have one of the hosts of the Fins Bandwagon Sports Talk Show, and also a very much contributor of the whole entire Fins Talk Sports Network. None other than, of course, you know him as Evan Posner, but we all love him as Finstanza. What's up, Finn? How's it going?
I'm doing great. Happy to be with you. It's a late hour for me. Everyone in my house is asleep, but this is actually really nice for me. I've had a really crazy day, so it's actually a nice way to cap it off. So I appreciate you having me.
No, not a problem, man. Thank you so much. Everyone knows we're pre-recording, but I have my 4-year-old and I put him to bed like around 9:30. So I want to make sure that he's gone asleep before I have you on. I'm sure you don't want to hear a screaming 4-year-old in the middle of a broadcast. So
I'm used to it.
You got three, I know.
I have screaming 9-year-olds and a screaming 10-year-old. It's all good.
Nice.
Yeah,
Does it get any easier?
Boy or girl?
Boy.
Boy's easier. Girl's the impossibility.
Thanks for the advice, man. I really appreciate it. Well, welcome to 305 Sports Now. One of the
Happy
things.
To be here.
Thank you, man. I really, really appreciate it. And one of the things I like to do is I like to have origin stories whenever I have a first-time guest and how they started their fandom or how they played their sport or how they got into it. So one thing about yourself is that you are a Canadian from Montreal, and you are a very, and I mean very passionate. Yes, I see it back there. I see it on the jersey as well.
Born on 82. Posner on it.
Oh, you're born in 82? I'm 80, man.
Born in 82, and I'll tell you the origin story of that jersey too.
Perfect, man. Perfect. Yeah. So you're living in Canada and so on. What made you a Dolphin fan? And not only that, what made you start entering the podcasting world as well?
Okay, so I became a Dolphins fan. Fortunately, that I'm one of those typical snowbirds. Grew up, a grandparents bought a place in Florida back in the late 70s, early 80s. Saying that I was born in 82, I was in Florida when I was 6 weeks old. So I'm now 41 years old. I don't know anything for a normal vacation except Florida. Yes, I've done cruises and I've traveled, but Florida was my base place to go. So as I started to understand things as I got a little bit older, when I was 4 years old back in 86 and around there, I was playing with the football, and the number one thing going on in Florida, there was no hockey, there was no baseball. The team was the Miami Dolphins and Dan Marino. So my first games was going as a young kid, going to, whether it was going out in Davie or whether it was going to the old where the Hurricanes played, whether it was going to Joe Robbie, was going to Dolphins games once in a while when I was in Florida. It was also the cool thing. It's the logo, the experience, Dan Marino. That's what got me hooked on it, because in Canada, we have the CFL. I had the Expos, I had the Canadians, but there was no real NFL team. And I always enjoyed football because it was that thing you always look forward to on Sundays, because it was different, right? It wasn't one of those things where a sport where you just appreciate the fact that there's a game 4 nights a week, right? Or every second day. Or baseball where there's 4 games in a row. So I grew up with 3 teams. I grew up with the Canadians, 24 Stanley Cups. I grew up with the Montreal Expos, and I grew up with the Miami Dolphins. And it was just always something for me. When I went to Florida, it was always something where I'd always get something Dolphins, or I'd want to go near the stadium, or it was just something that just a knack to me. It was just something about the team, the aura of the team, going back to the perfect season because it wasn't so far back at the time, and just growing through the team with Dan Marino back in the 90s, with all the other great players that were there at the beginning, with Don Shula. It was just a cool experience for me. So because to this day, except for COVID years, I pretty much have gone to Florida every single solitary year, at least once a year, sometimes usually multiple times a year, from the age of I was a baby up until I'm 41 now. I have my family has a place in Hallandale Beach, which is not even 25 minutes away from Miami Gardens, from current Hard Rock Stadium. So for me, that's how I became a fan. It was just the fact that I was one of those lucky people that was fortunate, and I didn't come from a lot. My family is more of a middle class family, but I was fortunate. My grandfather worked hard, my parents worked hard, and I had a place I can always go to. Like this summer, I'm going to be going for about a month because I can work remotely for a month to Florida. My wife's a teacher, and I'm going to be there. And when I'm going to take them to the Hard Rock Stadium, take them to the store, and usually because I'll be there beginning of August, it'll be training camp. I took them 2 years ago, and I'll take them again, and we'll get tickets, and we'll go to training camp so they can meet some of the players and just experience the fun experience that happens when you're there for training camp. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, I'm telling you, man. And yeah, a lot of people do snowbird and come to Florida as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Was Hallandale your stomping ground, or did you do Miami or Naples first? That you
always Hallandale. So
always Hallandale.
Yeah. So the funny story about that is that my grandfather was at the time we were staying in one of the more popular buildings that a lot of snowbirds stayed at. He was renting. Didn't love it because the purpose of going away was to get away from the people that he knew and meet new people. Luckily, he found the place, brand new condo, not as fancy, but it was just simple and it does the job. We're still there, and we're still there to this day, like two condos down, and we've been there ever since. Now, I have good friends who are on the West Coast. I've been there once in a while, but I'm a true Barrier Island, over the bridge, fly away. Like I go back to the point where years ago they cut off the bridge at Hallandale Beach and A1A. They were building a brand new flyaway so that you wouldn't have to sit with the bridge opening because of the center mass of a sailboat. Well, they sort of missed how they were going to design it, so they ended up having to build a flyaway anyways, where it opens to this day. So for me, I'm one of those people who laughs when the bridge is going up. I never get frustrated when a bridge goes up. I think it's just the funniest thing that I'm sitting there waiting, and then you just see this little thing passing by, and it's because of a sailboat. So people are sitting in traffic for 15 minutes because of a sailboat. But I love it. Like we're in between the intercoastal and the Atlantic. We're on the intercoastal, but literally from our balcony, if you turn left, there's the Atlantic Ocean. So for me, I literally am a 5-minute walk and I'm on the beach.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. When I stay in Pompano and so on, and they have the Marriott has a very nice hotel there. It's the same thing. I just get off and
I love it there.
Go to the beach. It's a very nice experience.
I love it.
To do that, especially when the weather's great and so on. You don't have to worry about anything. Just go in your home. In your case, you go in your home after the beach instead of packing up stuff. And it's just.
And what's cool about it is one of your good friends who has also been on your show before, Rob, Dolphins Thirsty. He was a cop in Sunny Isle. So I actually, to give you another perspective, my addiction to Florida is so great that I got married in Florida.
Oh, really?
I'm from Montreal. Did a little party here for like an engagement type of thing. But then went the Newport Beach Resort, which is in Sunny Isles, Florida, on right before 163rd and A1A, has a beautiful resort there, reasonable, had 75 people, flew from all throughout the United States and Canada, came, had a big wedding on the beach near a bridge. And then what the cool part was is because people were not experiencing it, everyone stopped. And you look around and you see people on their balcony. So I probably had 1,000 people watching the wedding, even though I had 75 people, because everyone would stop because I'm Jew. Being a Jew, the guy who sings. And then there's a lot of Jewish people who were there at that time, and they were stopping and engaging. It was really a cool experience. So I got married on the beach of Florida.
Yeah, so basically we've adopted you as a
Floridian. I always tell people to this day, if I had to choose between the Miami Dolphins and the teams in Montreal, I choose the Dolphins. It just there's stuff. I live and breathe the team.
That's awesome, because I've always said the Canadians are the New York Yankees of hockey.
No, they are. But the thing is about it is that I can miss a hockey game. Hockey in the playoffs is fun. I am up for every single game. Like to this day, I know where I was. And people, my parents, my kids, my neighbors, I never turn off the game even with 5 seconds left. I was watching the Miami Miracle. I lost my mind. When I saw Gronk there, and I go to myself, wait a second. When I saw Drake coming around, they're about to win the game. I knew right away when he did this. And I go to myself, it's like those experiences, I know where I was in most of these Dolphin experiences for me. I know where I was going back 15, 16 years when Cleo Lemon ruined our opposite perfect season with Greg Camarillo and him against the Bengals. I know where I was. I'll never forget. Those are things I'll just never forget.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, that's awesome. I mean, it is true. I'm the same way. Like basketball, I can miss a game. I can miss a hockey game as well, but I can't miss football. Can't, whether it's Canes or Dolphins. It's because it's once a week, and it's it's one game is impactful, especially in college football as well. One game is impactful. You lose one game, basketball, okay, fine. You go on a 4-game win streak, but losing one game, as we all know as Dolphin fans, going on a 3-4 game losing streak, you're done. Or kills your playoff chances as well. So those are things that I'm the same way with you when it comes to football. I can't miss a game.
No, I love it.
I just can't. So you become very successful as far as the podcasting world goes. You are a very powerful voice in the FTSN network, a very recognizable voice, a voice that draws a lot of comments. Especially when there's some live shows and so on. How'd you get involved in the podcasting world?
So, being a Canadian and not having a lot of connections, there's some Dolphin fans here, but you don't have fan clubs or anything like that. I was during the COVID years, heading into COVID, so like 2022-ish, I was trying to find, as I was watching games, what to engage in, like just to have some sort of level of engagement outside of myself and the people I'm friends with and that kind of stuff who are football fans. Mm-hmm. And I came across just on Twitter, Dolphins Talk. Okay. And Dolphins Talk had a show with Mike Oliva, and then he had a show with Tom Ernest, and then he had a show, the same old Dolphins show with the Kastner brothers and all that. And then one day I came across this show with this guy wearing the old frazzle, like this really weird blue tuxedo with a big beard. And I go, oh my God, who is this guy? And then I started laughing about it. And he was using a paper with a stick. And then all of a sudden there was a show that came up called Finns Talk Today with Hank and Bobby. And then there was a show called Finns Talk Overtime that he was doing on Dolphins Talk, and I got attacked by it with him and Brett. And then at one point he said, I was watching the show, if ever you want to come on to my show to introduce, because he was trying to build up his network within the Dolphins Talk, because Finns Talk Sports Network didn't exist yet, come on. And so I made a thing in the comment, and I really started engaging. And one thing I think people learned pretty quickly, especially some of my closest friends. Like I have a friend who's literally a big, massive Bucks fan, as bad as I am a Dolphins fan. And he couldn't believe my knowledge about football when he heard me talking. And so I mentioned to Bob, I reached out to Bobby on DM, and I mentioned on the show, and he says, come on. And I did sort of the origin story, and we just clicked. And then then he bounced off of Dolphins Talk and wanted to start his own thing. Well, he needed to build some shows. So because of my positive energy of starring on his shows with Overtime, one of the first things we did was a Tua duel between myself and Brett Lagasse, because he was ripping Tua and I was Tua on. So that's how we sort of engaged, because I was already challenging the few people he was working with on the network. And then we started discussing things. Like he really leads it, but I'm in the background giving him ideas. So we're talking about, that's how we originally got the wrestling shows and the various Dolphin shows, the pregame show, the postgame shows, how we can engage with certain things. And the reason why I think I was really the positive energy that people missed about the fact that I really knew a lot about the Dolphins in a different way, in a really positive element, but really knew a lot about it, because I have a very sponge knowledge of everything. Whenever I try to grab something, especially with sports, it gets ingrained in my brain, and I'm able to express it. But then I think he started to see the personality in me, where I would react a certain way. So the whole Finstanza thing actually came from Dave Stager, who started referring to me as Costanza because of the way I was interrupting and making jokes and overreacting. So then I came up with the idea of with Bobby, of like, what if I'm Finstanza? So I always use the George Costanza references when I engage, because it's a personality. So that's why when people react, if you can't accept me for who I am, because I'm the most genuine but teddy bear type of person, I overreact. But Bobby knows when he tells me to shut up, I engage. So the reason I got into the podcasting world was really because of Bobby Melendez. Like to this day, I would not be doing this if it wasn't for Bobby. That's why I said before we came on, that's why last year, Fan Club Weekend, we did something together. I wanted to bring him. The connection I took with him to Caneswear. The reason why Caneswear and Bobby have connected is because I was able to bring Bobby to Caneswear, because I love that store. Mm-hmm. And so I found that store, and I just fell in love with it. Like I'm wearing most of the stuff that I got from Caneswear, like the hat, most of the stuff I have is from Caneswear. So really, the podcasting world was really Bobby giving me a chance. Like, it's sort of that thing where you go to somebody who's in the radio business, like, and how'd you get on radio? Because one guy gave me a shot. That's Bobby Melendez.
Yeah.
Like, Bobby
Bobby's a great
Melendez
guy.
is the best.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he honestly is. I met him through I met him through Courtney and so on, and also on X as well. And it's been great. I've been, he's invited me on the show. He's been on my show as well.
Talented kid.
Yeah, very talented, very organized. His shows are very well put together, very professional as well. And one thing I like about Bobby, and I've told him, and I told his wife as well, is that he's very open as far as collaborating. Which is in some cases, some people in the podcasting world think that they're on NBC or ABC where they're competing, and that's not the case. There's enough room for everybody, and Bobby understands it, like I do, and you do as well. Understands that, and he's very welcoming, to the Finstanza Sports Network. He's welcoming everybody else appearing on people's shows as well. So, I mean, my hat's off to him. The one thing about Bobby is interesting as well is that he did the reverse. Usually, people start and then they create the network. He created the network first. So I find that that pretty cool that they took the chance, and whatnot. But no, yeah, and one of the things about you is that people like is your takes, because, like I said, you're very passionate and like to go back and forth and so on. Mike McDaniel is an individual. I like him personally. I know you're
I love him personally.
Yeah, okay, I like him personally. I will say that some of his decisions in coaching and the way he coached this year as well is much to be desired. And my take on him is, and I'll give you my perspective, you can jump in and chime in as well, is that we put up a lot of points against crappy teams, but I felt like he rolled back the offense whenever he faced a team that was elite. Hence the reason why we averaged under about 14 points a game against playoff teams and finished, I think it was like 1-5, in the season against them. So that's my thing. And the first season he was like that. The first season, whether you sucked as a team or whether you were a playoff contender, he went balls to the wall with his offense. As a full body of work, you have 2 seasons to take a look at Mike McDaniel. What have you seen, and what do you think he could improve upon, or what do you like and you think he should continue doing?
So the joke I made at the end of the year was that I wanted to, in the first 3 rounds of the draft, it was a joke. I wanted to draft a head coach, GM, and special teams coordinator. Okay, that I'm a Greer guy, but I wanted to make a joke because of the whole McDaniel thing.
Okay.
So McDaniel as a whole, for me, at the end of this season, based on his performance after 2 years, I wanted him gone. And the reason why I wanted him gone, not as a person, was because of the fact that for 3 years we had Brian Flores. Those were the rebuilding years. Then you get hired and you commit to Tua. Yes, this was your only coaching opportunity, but you commit to Tua, which I like Tua. But then you get Tyreek Hill. Then you get Bradley Chubb. Then you get Jalen Ramsey. Then you get Raheem Mostert, Devon. You get all these players, and no matter what, the excuse in the first year was rookie head coach. This second year was he's still learning as a head coach. I'm sorry. There are people who are coaching in this league who after 1 year have great years, who don't have nearly the teams that you have. DeMeco Ryans, who took a CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, team, and had a better year than any of the 2 years that you've had, with nearly the talent that you have on your team right now on paper. Last year, the first year, he needed a Timex on his watch because he couldn't clock manage. He had no idea, couldn't win a challenge. And the playoff game, the fact that he didn't know what down it was inexcusable. You have a chance to beat the Buffalo Bills at home in the freezing cold on the road against Buffalo, and you forget what down it is. Had you known what down it was, you probably could have maybe won that football game with Skylar Thompson, who to this day still have yet to throw a touchdown in the NFL. Just remember that 2 years, he's been on the field a few times, not one touchdown. Second year, the challenges got worse. He won one by accident. The Buffalo game the first year, and this game was in the first year, and then this year again. In many of the games, he gives up on the running game. We had one of the best rushing attacks in the league, and he doesn't want to use it. And I hear people like Brett and people are saying, well, the line in those moments, maybe the play is not right there. But when I see 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3 or 4th and 1, and he's throwing bubble screens to Tyreek Hill, who's getting wall up because people know that's what he's going to do. It's almost a Mike Gesicki factor where he's on the field. That's exactly what they're going to do. So they know what down it is. Mike McDaniel, to me, when he came out of that playoff tunnel against Kansas City and he got interviewed, and and they asked him, "What do you have to do in the second half to get back in this game?" "We need to run the football and have sustained drives." He threw the ball 3 times in his first 3 attempts in the coldest game in probably 25 years. It's unacceptable for me that a guy with this much talent on the roster had to doesn't sort of. I called him McGase a little bit, only because I feel like he wasn't taking the defense seriously. Like what happened in the Tennessee game is on Vic Fangio on the defense, but it's on Mike McDaniel, because in the end, Mike McDaniel is responsible for the whole team. He's not the offensive coordinator; he's the head coach. So the fact that he allowed 2 drives like that to happen, and we lost the football game and couldn't come back on offense with Tua, inexcusable. The fact that Vic Fangio was supposed to be a mentor for him, but in the end, it looked like they worked in silos. And I think for me, the curse of everything was Hard Knocks, even though I like Hard Knocks, was because he played to the cameras with his swearing and all that, and everyone loved him. He's a great players coach. The problem is that with the team that we have built, Mike McDaniel was probably the right coach for Tua and this team when Brian Flores was hired, not in the last 2 years. Then he'd probably be further along. The thing is that because Stephen Ross, I think the part of the reason why I think Chris Greer is still around, even though I like him, is the whole thing with the lawsuit. Is until that's settled, I don't think Stephen Ross wants to make a change, and because I think he enjoys the fact that he has 3 minority GMs in the terms of because he has 3 African American GMs, and Mike McDaniel's a minority. And I think he wants to stay in that realm until the whole lawsuit with Brian Flores is somehow settled. But for me, Mike McDaniel is a prisoner of his own stupidity, because he's a great play designer, but he's trying to turn Tua into Justin Herbert by having him gunsling it, which doesn't make sense. Dink and dunk, do timely plays, run the football when you have to. And if you get, honestly, on a 3rd and 2, if you get pushed back on the run, then I understand you might want to try a pass on 4th down. But to try to throw it on 3rd and 2 so many times to Tyreek Hill, that's the problem. For me, that's why I'm okay with getting an OBJ and going to get any more running backs, because any more weapons you have, so he doesn't keep on going to Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, for me is better. Mike McDaniel has been great for this team, but he's also been a detriment to this team because he doesn't get out of his own way and he doesn't learn from his mistakes.
Yeah, the one thing about Tua though is that I thought he was better on Mike McDaniel's first year, because I thought he was better. He's a better decision maker with the football before he got hurt than the second year. The reason why I say that is because he threw to more guys. He threw to Gesicki. We saw River Craycraft get the ball as well.
He throws to nobody now.
Well, yeah, it's only 2 guys. It's Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and in many cases, he forced it to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill would be triple covered, and he would force the ball at him. Hence the reason why his interception numbers went up this year. So I think it's also a matter of execution, because everybody says Tua is a 1-read guy. I think he's a 2-read guy. He reads one, he reads the other. If he doesn't like, he goes to his first read, which is usually Tyreek. And I think that's been a problem this year, whether it be something he has to work on in the offseason. That's why I think you do need a 3rd wide receiver. I like the drafting of Malik Washington. I think Malik, with the speed he has and his hands and so on, he's a small guy. He's the guy that can find holes in the zone and so on any defense. He's a good 3rd down receiver.
Jonnu Smith should help also.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So Jonnu Smith, absolutely. Finally, a blocking and pass catching tight end. Perfect. Yeah. As well. So I expect more out of Tua this year and less mistakes. So I do think as far as this season's concerned, we saw a lot more mistakes because Tua's a bit more reckless with the football and so on. But again, going back to Mike a little bit, why do you think, and this is my opinion, you feel free to disagree with me. I think Mike, like for example, I'll give you an example. I went to the Giants game, and they opened up against the Giants by having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle line up in a 2-back set, and they had Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane line up as wide receivers. That confused the living hell out of the New York Giants. What do? I believe they handed the ball off to Jalen Waddle, and then they pitched it to Raheem Mostert. He got a 30-yard gain. He never did that against teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the Baltimore Ravens. Why is that? Why do you think that's the case?
Because he's trying to outsmart himself. He's not sticking to what works. The same way with Raheem Mostert. When Raheem Mostert in a game that you're coming back into and he runs for 8 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards, 5 yards, and then you start throwing the ball. he's a prisoner of his own stupidity. I was at the Carolina game. We were down 14-0 without a whiff, and he couldn't do anything. And then luckily Carolina is so bad that you were able to get back into it.
Mhm.
But I think Mike McDaniel is just a prisoner of his own stupidity, because even with Tua now, they are hurting them each other basically, because they're trying to they look at the when they get behind center. Once I have not once seen Tua audible. I've never once seen Tua change the play at the line of scrimmage. Why? Because it's the KISS rule of his play design. Keep it simple, stupid, doesn't exist. And also Tua needs something simplified. It's overcomplicated, and then it gets confusing. Like you've seen, I don't know if you remember, was it the game going Gesicki was there? Gesicki didn't even know where to go.
Yes.
And the
Yeah.
ball hit him in the ass.
Yes, I
Tyreek
remember
Hill
that game.
even admitted, "Oh, I didn't even understand the playbook my first year."
Yeah.
That's my concern. It's more that Mike McDaniel thinks that if the obvious thing to happen is what you shouldn't do, he'll do the obvious thing anyways, because he's trying to outsmart him. So even though they know you're going to pass, he thinks you're going to run, so he's going to pass. Like he gets his own way, just doesn't stick with what works. When you're averaging 7 yards a carry, and and then you give up on that to start throwing bubble screens, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I can see where you're coming from, and I don't want him gone, and so on. I think that
The reason
you
I
know,
overreact, because also the big thing about the thing is people call myself sometimes the overreaction wagon.
okay,
The reason why I throw it out there that he should be fired is the fact that because everyone was using the excuse he was a rookie head coach. Well, again, 2 years in a row, because his record. Honestly, I think I always make the joke. I think it's something with the pheromones. You know, when you go to a blackjack table in Vegas or even at the Hard Rock, they keep you there by feeding you drinks and the air they pass through in the casino. That I think the head coach's office has this pheromone issue between Flores and McDaniel, because they're two of the most stubborn SOBs. One on the defense and one on the offense. They will not. They will stick. They will just stick with what they want to do because they think it's the right thing to do no matter what.
okay. All right. Well, I mean, I do agree with you as far as McDaniel getting in his own way, and so on. I do think that's the case. Hopefully, with the addition of John Smith and the weapons that they got in the draft as well, they're able to make a dent.
And I'm
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
happy with the hiring of Anthony Weaver. So let's just.
Yeah, so am I. I thought it was a
I'm
good
a
hire.
big. The reason why is my biggest complaint last year was the fact that this defensive head coach was not on the field and not engaging with his players, pushing his players, falling asleep and drawing on a notepad in the press box doesn't work for me. And to have someone I always made the joke when they hired Anthony Weaver, we did the breaking news show, and I said, I'm so excited to hear and meet with the future 2025 head coach of the Miami Dolphins. It's the first thing I said.
I saw that.
It was a joke. And obviously I'm kidding.
Yeah, I did see
the
that.
thing about Anthony Weaver is the fact that what he did in Baltimore was amazing, because most of the players on that line only played 50% of the snaps a game. They're always rotating in and out. And he's developed some great players that got some big contracts at the end of this year that are re-signed with the Ravens. So I like the balance of having a young guy again that will work with Mike McDaniel, who will push the defenders. So I'm really liking that hire.
Yeah, I personally like my coordinators to be up in the booth. Only reason why is because they can see the whole field. They can see the whole field, and if they need to change it really quickly, they can.
Look at Spaniolo. He doesn't
Yeah,
need to be on.
I get that, as well. But I mean,
You need a sense for your players, especially our defense, which is going to have, yes, some veterans, but a young core to it. There's still going to be a lot of new players. It's the engagement factor. It's the same way, for example, when you play hockey. Like I coach my kids' hockey team. When they come off the bench, on the bench after a shift, you could talk to your players. You can't talk to your players if you're in the press box.
Yeah. But that's what's also good to have very good position coaches as well, because
But that's why you put your good position coaches in the booth who relay things down to you. You don't need to be up there drawing. That's just not the kind of coach I like. I like coaches who are the hard note, because I said this many times in the Tennessee game. Had that been Don Shula, Jimmy Johnson, Tony Sperano, Dave Wanstead, take any of those guys, they would be ripping into that defense on the sideline. You look, they show. I don't even think that Vic Fangio is at the game. He may have been back at the old people's home. I don't know where he was, because to allow 2 drives like that is as weak as that defense was. And by the way,
keep in mind, you mentioned head coaches though. Jimmy Johnson, Don Shula, they were head coaches. They're usually always on the sidelines.
Oh,
as well.
no, but I'm saying but they were defensive-minded head coaches. That's
Oh,
what
I
I'm
see.
trying to say.
Okay.
It was because they were truly the defensive coordinators, right? What was I gonna I lost my train of thoughts. I wanted to tell you something else. It'll come back to me. It'll come back to me.
Okay. Yeah, no, Jimmy definitely was a defensive minded coach. That's for
Yeah, yeah,
sure.
no, it'll
That
come
definitely
back to
was
me
it.
on that, but no. For me, it's really the engagement with the players that makes a very big difference to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that again, at least coordinators, again, as far as like the positioning goes, I like them up top. I like position coaches to be, on the sidelines for the reason that you talked about, getting engaging the guys and so on. A lot of times, position coaches also sit next to their players and go over things as well that coordinators do as well. Just a different take, as far as the way I see things.
Mm,
But of course, head coaches they're going to be on the sideline. That's their job,
mhm.
as well. Okay, so we got your take on Mike McDaniel. I understand where you're coming from as far, and I think we have some common ground as far as him getting in his own way and him overthinking, especially when he takes on more playoff caliber teams. Okay, now I want you to, you said you're kind of a U fan because you spend so much time in South
I'm
Florida.
not big into you, like, I don't know the details of all the players like that, but I have a high level because if there's a team I wanna cheer for, I wanna cheer for the U,
Mhm.
and Mario Cristobal to me is like a poor man's Mike McDaniel.
Okay,
Like, only and then I think that's where you were going, like, why do I have an issue with him?
yeah,
He's not in the 2 because prior to him getting there, and you probably know the U better, they had a quarterback there who people were saying was gonna do very, very well in the NFL potentially and could be a decent draft pick and could be a top draft pick. Do you know his name?
Tyler Van Dyke.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Since Mario Cristobal arrived, where's Tyler Van Dyke now?
he's struggling for playing time in Wisconsin.
Exactly. You took a guy who literally was potentially a perennial top draft pick and turned him into mush. His record in the ACC after 2 years is 12 and 13,
Mhm.
and you're giving him $80 million.
Yep.
You gave him a 10-year contract, and the previous what was his previous coach? You said Oregon. Who
Oregon.
was one of his great players there? Justin Herbert. And yeah, he did. And Justin Herbert did well there, but I don't think he developed him to the kind of quarterback that he is. He also did in Oregon exactly what he did in Miami, where he makes Mike McDaniel's clock management look phenomenal.
Yeah.
The guy is what was your reaction on that game where he was supposed to kneel the ball and he ran it?
Okay, I'm
He's
gonna
done it twice. He
I'm
did it
gonna
in Oregon and he's done it at Miami.
I'm gonna answer that question. I'm gonna answer that question. Let me unpack Mario a little bit, and I'll answer that question.
Okay.
I'll answer the Oregon game, and I'll answer the Georgia
Okay.
Tech game.
So it's something about him, his conservativeness, his lack of fire, his lack of game planning, his lack of management. Like this is one of the most prestigious programs in the country. Like for me, I understand Thirst talks about Florida and what Florida, but the fact that you could talk more about Urban Meyer and what he's done in Florida more than what you can't really talk about everything great at the U. Like I want to talk about Jason Taylor. I don't want to talk about Mario Cristobal. Like like in terms of the fact that he doesn't engage me. Like the fact I feel like he's a John Gruden. Like and if I compare him to John Gruden going back to to the Raiders, he
Okay.
was there, so he had an experience. But for a guy to have the experience that he had at FIU, Alabama, Oregon, everywhere he's gone, to get this contract there and to screw the pooch, to be in the ACC and to be 12 and 13 after 2 years, after getting paid $8 million a year, after coming from the Ducks, is inexcusable. Like his performance, they brought him here to elevate the program, not to make it worse or to leave it where it was. Like Mike McDaniel's job is to come in and make what Brian Flores did better. He's done it a little bit better, but not much to me because he has a better team on paper. He has a better team on the field, and he's has the same record the last 2 years, the 9-8 season and the season last year, the blowing of the division. Mario Cristobal, for me, is hurt. Like also, who has he developed in the 2 years? You probably know this from the draft better than I do, but where was the first U player taken?
Yeah, those guys. I'm gonna be very honest with you. They they should have been picked up earlier. Cam Kitchens was
People
a
don't like
third.
the way Cam Kitchen defends on the slants. I know
Yeah, well,
that.
Cam. Well, but the thing is, well, he also didn't do very well in the combine in terms
No.
of running, but that doesn't freaking matter because Cam Kitchens could cover any part of the field you ask him to. The guy had 11 interceptions in 2 years at the University of Miami, and 11 interceptions in 2 years against pretty good competition. He picked off some pretty good quarterbacks, like
Yeah.
i.e. Drake May, who was second. I think it was the second quarterback picked in the draft.
Yeah. He's
Javion
also a
Cohen.
500 coach, right? Like you know who he reminds me of, Mario Cristobal? He's like the Miami Dolphins. 5 years, just and you can team. 5 years ago, a couple years ago, people did an analysis. Do you know who the most average team in the NFL is? Miami Dolphins. Miami Dolphins are like the typical 8-8. When they played 16 games, was a typical 8-18. That's Mario Cristobal. Are we satisfied with the performance of the Miami Dolphins over the last 25 years? Not at all. So why would you bring a guy in who's not a winning head coach? Right now, he's 12 and 13. He was, when they hired him, he was a 500 coach in his career. The best day he had was at Oregon with Justin Herbert, but he's just not. He doesn't wow me. He doesn't excite me. They'd be like, for example, you're an NFL guy. You're also an NBA guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look at what Mark Daniels doing in Oklahoma City. Look what Flip Saunders continues to do. Look what the young Ty Lue's doing in LA. Like, by the way, did you know this stat? Mark Daniel, do you know that this is the most insane thing I didn't even realize? Do you know Eric Spoelstra's never won Coach of the Year for all his accolades? How insane is that?
Absolutely insane. He got punished for having LeBron James on his team for a good 4 seasons.
Not one Coach of the Year, which is just, I digress.
Yeah.
Bam is still overrated, but that's okay. That's my funny joke of the day. I don't know if you ever heard me say that. But no, for me, it's just for you being a you guy, we expect more from that facility. I actually remember when I was a kid. You know what actually made me cheer for the U? I had a kid. I used to work for an organization about 22 years ago, where I did these summer trips, like traveled across North America and the States. One of the kids was from Florida. The guy was with me for 35 days. He only wore Miami Hurricane stuff. He's from Florida, young kid who was 13, 14 years old, obsessed with the U. 20 years ago was a more exciting team than now. Beautiful campus, beautiful school, beautiful everything. He'll pay a fortune to go see the games, and the dreck that we have. You took a guy, literally, that's my thing. You had a guy who was a perennial top draft pick in the NFL 2 years ago, and now he's fighting for playing time at a different college. That does not spell well for a guy who was a great where he earned his accolades at Oregon. Like, you came back to the U and you've made the team worse. For me, that's not acceptable. Like, to get that kind of a contract. Also, I would never have given him 10 years for what he did at Oregon. He was still a 500 head coach. You give a 10-year contract to, doesn't appeal to me at all.
Okay. All right. You said a lot, so I'm going to unpack.
That's typical what I do.
Yeah. So you said also I'm going to unpack. He's a 500 head coach because he started at FIU. Let's be perfectly frank. FIU does not support its athletic program the way Oregon does and the way University of Miami's starting to do now. All right. They started with him. That's one. FIU was irrelevant until he took over head coaching realms. Got T.Y. Hilton to go to FIU. Got FIU its first bowl win, and you could ask any fan out there that that's FIU. He was wrongfully fired from the university. They thought they were gonna get Butch Davis, and because he had one bad season after all his seniors had graduated, which includes T.Y. Hilton, and went to the NFL draft, and he got fired because he had one bad season in a rebuilding season. So he gets dismissed. Oregon, he took over a team that was 4-8 and made it a 9-10 win, 9 and then 9 and 10 win season. Yeah. Justin Herbert wasn't recruited by him. He came with Willie Taggart. But every year, Justin Herbert's numbers got better. Justin Herbert finished his senior year with 34 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. We would love that. We would love that.
Why couldn't he do the same thing with Tyler Van Dyke?
Let me get to Tyler. Let me get to Tyler right now, okay? And I used to be a Tyler Van Dyke fan, and then I heard some things as well. Not since he left, people talk, including parents, and so on. So he gets to the U. His first season, it was a disaster. It was a Avengers coaching staff that didn't mesh well. You had basically an all-star coaching staff, didn't mesh well. Kevin Steele was a hop skip away from retirement. Josh Gaddis was a product of Jim Harbaugh's system as well. According to Ja'Cory Brown, who just signed with UCF, Frank Pons, who's now the OC over at App State, was a good OC, but his quarterback coach, because a sip of water, was a little overcoaching. So that was a problem. He gets 2 coordinators that are up and coming, Lance Guidry and Shannon Dawson. Lance Guidry is really good. He revamped the Miami Hurricane defense. The defense went from like 80 to like 30 in the country. Big step with playing a true freshman like Ruben Bain. The offensive line got much better. Okay, playing a true freshman right tackle in Francis Mauigoa. 2 top 10 classes with a 5-7 record and a 7-6 record. 2 top 10 classes, so recruits are still coming in. What happened to Tyler Van Dyke? Tyler Van Dyke was a system quarterback under Rhett Lashley's system that it was one read, get the ball out. One read, get the ball out. There was no film on Tyler Van Dyke. Okay, now there's film on Tyler Van Dyke. Tyler Van Dyke, if there's zone, he freaks out. He throws interceptions. Tyler Van Dyke is only performs well if it's man-to-man coverage. Most of Tyler Van Dyke's interceptions, he could literally make a cup of a café cubano and so on in the backfield. He threw interceptions with no pressure. That hurt the team. Hence, probably Mario told Shannon Dawson, simplify the offense and let's run more. Which went from Texas A&M over to what you saw what you hate. The whole conservative factor aspect. So Tyler Van Dyke goes to Wisconsin, and you're seeing the same thing. Tyler did not communicate with his wide receivers. They're very important from a quarterback. Didn't communicate with his wide receivers. When a bad play, sat down, put his helmet down, didn't do much. Couldn't handle a lot of the criticism coming from the outside, right, as well, including from some some of our commentators that are actually nice guys, and we're trying to be constructive. Couldn't handle it as well. He goes to Wisconsin, so now it's year 3 for Mario. This is a make or break year for Mario. I expect a Norvell jump. Mike Norvell, I'm not a fan of Florida State, but Mike Norvell struggled his first 2 seasons at Florida State. He had Deion Sanders right behind him, ready to take over for him. 3rd season, he has a 10-win season. He developed Jordan Travis, all those things. Mario needs this year, no excuses, 9 to 10 wins. You have the top quarterback in the transfer portal. You just picked up the top running back in the transfer portal as well. You just picked up one of the highest coveted wide receivers in the transfer portal. And by the way, the wide receiver was under Shannon Dawson in Houston as well. Cam Ward it fits the system that Shannon Dawson ran in Houston as well. Your coordinator's in his 2nd season. Ruben Bain is going to be a sophomore. Kiko Marinoa is coming back as well. You just picked up a veteran linebacker from Louisville. So basically, the only thing I'm worried about is the defensive backfield, because really don't have much experience back there. But there's no excuse for Mario. This has to be a 10-win season. You don't have Clemson on the schedule, which, by the way, he beat Clemson. All right. And I think the last time Miami beat Clemson, I think George Bush was still in office. The last time Miami beat Clemson, he beat Clemson. He beat an SEC team that was a top 10 team at the time. Connor Webman ends up getting hurt. A&M ends up having struggling after that. So it's a make or break season for Mario. He has to get 9 to 10 wins. He has to compete for an ACC. If not, then the seat's gonna get a little bit warmer. And then I'll join your end of the argument. But as of right now, I'm willing to give the guy a chance because he's done it before.
A part of it is the fact that to give someone $80 million for 5 wins and 7 wins. You expected more when you hired him.
Yeah. Listen, I was 16 and wanted Butch Davis fired when I was a kid. We were a team that never lost in the Orange Bowl to losing to East Carolina. In the Orange Bowl. I think it was the Orange Bowl. I don't remember. Either way, you should never lose to East Carolina. We got blown out by Florida State 47-0 as well. Butch ended up giving us the greatest college football team of all time. And he's recruiting like that. I wanted to give him a chance. But again, year 3, you've acquisitions portal. Your guys are now going to be in their second to third year as well. Your edge rushers are nasty. Your edge rushers are nasty. You got the top defensive tackle in the country as a recruit. There's no excuses. 9 or 10 wins. No, 9 or 10 wins.
I think the expectation is that right now, I know because you're a big Heat fan, there's Spoelstra, there's Maurice, then there's McDaniel and Cristobal. And Florida doesn't really count. The Marlins don't really count. And Inter Miami is really about Messi. But when you look at Paul Maurice in the NHL, congratulations to the Panthers for beating the Lightning, moving on to the 2nd round. Big win today, 6-1. You look at what the Panthers are doing. They brought in a really experienced guy in Paul Maurice, who's won, who does well, strong coach, mentality. Look what they've done over the last 2 years. Went to the finals last year, and I think they're going to go to the finals again this year. Look at what Eric Spoelstra is doing. They got slacked today again. Yeah. We knew this was going to happen anyways, but what he was able to do it. And when you're not able to make a sandwich because you're missing one piece of bread, that's exactly what he's doing right now. The team is a little messed up. I think they were too reliant on Jimmy. The game they played out of their hearts out was the best game they were going to play all series. Yeah. Jimmy, I think, is the problem. I think you need to redevelop without Jimmy. But Spoelstra's proved his moxie with good players. Like, for example, you had LeBron, you had Dwayne Wade, you had Bosch, but you won. Mike McDaniel has Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Jalen Ramsey, and all that, and he hasn't won. So not one, but like at least won a playoff game. He's had opportunities in both, and he's blown both. So first of all, for me, yes. Like, well, I'll put you this way: both M's should be fired if both do not have significant improvements in their coaching performances this year. Both should be gone.
Yeah. If Cristobal shows improvement, if he gets to 9 wins, he's gonna stay. And again, listen, Manny Diaz. Manny Diaz won 9 games the second season with less talent. Well, he had a good quarterback. He had Derek King, and then they were able to bring in Charleston Rambo. I think the year after, if I'm not mistaken. But he won 9 games. There's no reason why Cristobal should not be able to win 9 games this year.
Yeah.
And you can't have that trap. You can't have that trap game. Oh, and you asked me about Georgia Tech. I was upset.
He did it with Oregon too. He did it also with Oregon.
There was more nuance with Oregon because Stanford still had a timeout, and
there was better ways to call that game.
He ran the ball. The guy got a first down. He fumbled the football. Or Stanford picks it up.
Why aren't you kneeling?
Because he couldn't knee because Stanford still had a timeout.
No, not Stanford game, but this game.
Oh no, that was a stupid move. That was a very stupid move. He told from what I heard, he told the players that he wanted to finish strong. I'm like, 6 yards got you that.
No, wasn't the rumor that there was the running back was on a record to get over 100 yards and he needed those yards to get there?
Yeah, that's a fact, but I don't think that was the case. At least he never admitted that. He admitted that he wanted to finish the game strong.
Okay.
That's the rumor that I heard.
Well, I give all faith to him. I'll cheer for the Canes. I'll cheer for Mario. There's no denying. I just have higher expectations of my head coaches. Maybe I'm too much of I expect too much from my head coaches, but that's just my standard.
No, and I agree with you. Again, 9 to 10 wins has to happen. People are gone. The transfer portal I think closes tomorrow, and nobody can jump in. I think until like fall ball, which starts in August or something like that, or reopens again. I don't know when it does again, but the only thing I'm worried about is our defensive backfield because we're thin there. We have 2 solid corners, but the nickel position and the safety position is where I'm worried about. But again, if your front 7 are killing it, which I expect them that they will this year, they did last year, it'll make the defensive backfield look a lot better. But again, as far as drafting goes, I think that Matt Lee and Javion Cohen got screwed because Matt Lee only get 1 sack in 4 years, and Javion Cohen did never give up a sack in his whole college career. So I don't know how those two weren't drafted higher. Cam Kitchens, the knock on him was that he took bad angles. He would take bad angles, which happened in the Georgia Tech game. He would take bad angles, and he ran a 4.6. But the guy could cover the field, and he's picked off some of the best quarterbacks in college football. And that's another thing too. So I'm not. That's the only thing. But we'll see what happens next year. Yeah. We'll see what happens next year. If the team does well, again, you win, your draft stock also goes up. That's another factor too. If you're on a winning team, your draft stock also rises. So we'll see what happens, as well. Okay, so Finstanza, talk to me. Chop Robinson, what do you think?
I knew that was going to be the pick before the pick happened. And then when Josh Wingate was doing it, he didn't want me to ruin it. I knew what it was going to be before because I looked at the draft board. And even though we all feel people wanted interior offensive line, people wanted D line. Because of the experience we had, with number one, Mike McDaniel said last year, if he could pick an edge rusher in the first round of every single draft, as long as he's a head coach, that's what he would do. That's one hint. The fact of the matter is, take the O-line. Teron Armstead is back. They re-signed Kendall Lamb. Robert Jones is back. Keon Smith is back. You sign Aaron Brewer. You have Austin Jackson. You can go get Dalton Reisner. You can maybe go get Connor Williams. There's depth in their mind of Liam Eichenberg. There's depth at veteran enough experience to sustain that O-line. On the D-line, you signed 7 between the Jonathan Harrises and the Benito Joneses, and I can go on and on and on of all the defensive line. They got 7 defensive linemen. The one area where we struggled towards the end of the year because of losing Chubb and Phillips, and it killed us the rest of the season, was edge. You signed Shaq Barrett, fine, great. Van Ginkel gone because Van Ginkel won a starting position. Shaq Barrett is happy to be a stopgap for a couple games and knows he'll come in and out. We needed an edge rusher, and I challenged Miss Finns. I challenged everybody on the network who at that position outside, and she said Cameron Good. I fell off my chair. So for me, The edge rusher position, I like the raw talent because I think he's going to be quickly developed by Anthony Weaver. I don't think it's going to take very long for him to be a stud in this league, Chop Robinson. The guy ran a 4.4 freaking 9 as a freaking edge rusher.
Yep.
The guy is motivated. He is feisty. I'm happy with it.
Yeah, he's also 250 and he ran a 4.4. That says a lot about
4.49. Amazing. Under 4.5 for that size, insane.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, I was happy with the pick. Again, I told you I wanted a tackle, but I get, we do need an edge rusher. That is actually a need that we needed as well. What about the tackle from Houston?
Okay, so tackle for Houston, I'm happy they went interior. In fact, I'm happy they went offensive line there. Were there some other players there like Cooper Beebe? Probably, but the one thing I liked about the guy, he was a great interview. And the thing about Mike McDaniel, who's very big on words, adversity is opportunity, blah, blah, blah. He likes people who have very good acumen in engaging with people. And Patrick Paul, you listen to him, the way he engages with the media and with people, he's someone who will be very impressive to Mike McDaniel and Chris Greer. His size is phenomenal. His wingspan, what he's able to do. Mike Brown, who's also on the Finstock Sports Network off and on, he was a big fan of Houston. He follows them. Very happy with the pick. And I'm okay with the developmental aspect of it. Why? Because to me, this year, you have the players you need at the key positions right now. Yes, you need to get a little more depth, but you don't have any really open starting positions right now for the kind of players you're getting in the draft in the second round. For him, outside of running back, because running back's a little different. I'm happy he's learning behind Teron Armstead. And also learning behind Kendall Lamb. Because in a year from now, if Teron Armstead decides to retire or is no longer capable, Patrick Paul will be ready. I'm okay with developing it. What's so wrong with developing that in the second round? The same way you draft a quarterback that you sit for 3 years, 4 years, develop them so they can become a star. So I'm totally fine with the pick. And I love the guy. I love the personality of the player.
Oh, me too. I want to ask you a question though, and we'll talk about this player in particular. The running back out of Tennessee.
Love that pick.
You like that pick? I like the pick too, but I was surprised.
About that pick.
Well, I was surprised because I thought we needed more of a 4th and 1, 3rd and 1 type of back. We need a thumper more so than a speedster.
No, he's physical.
Well, he's big. He's actually bigger.
Special teams. He's physical. I think he could get that 4th and 1. The reason I like him is because I want Jeff Wilson and Savon Ahmed gone. I want him to be our 3rd and 4th. I want him to be our 3rd back. Raheem Mostert, you don't have to put through the grinder. I'm happy we went up. People are saying, well, you gave up a 3rd round pick. I go, a 3rd round pick next year is like a 4th round pick this year, the type of thing like that. It's totally fine with me because you're going to have compensatories. For me, I'm totally happy with the pick because Mike McDaniel went to go get the player he wanted. And when you want to go get the player you want, and especially in the 3rd or 4th round, doesn't bother me at all. I think it's a phenomenal pickup. The guy has speed for days. The guy is talented for days. Like him and Devon Achane in the same backfield, watch out.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I was surprised I didn't get someone, but you're right. He is physical, and so is HN. Actually, HN is much more physical. People give him credit for.
He's a little more brittle, obviously.
Yeah, he is. That's why he bulked up a little bit more this past offseason, so he would take more of a pounding. Finn, thank you so much for joining us today. I had a wonderful time having a conversation with you. I like your takes. I like your passion as well. I like your story of how you became a Dolphin fan. Let my listeners know where they can find you.
So you can catch me on the Finstock Sports Network. I have a couple shows on there, Finn's Bandwagon. I have a few random shows I'll show up on during the regular season and during the regular season. I do a post-game show. That's where people get my overreactions and my crazy takes. But no, I have a lot of fun. And whenever you're going to you'll catch me in random shows. I'll go on Thirsties Network, DolphinsThirsty.com, where I'll come back on here happily. I go on Dolphins Talk with Manny and that group as well. Bearded Fanatic. So I'm everywhere. Anywhere that someone wants to drop me a link and have fun, I'm happy to talk Dolphins, sports. I can talk hockey, baseball, college football, anything you want to hear. Obviously, the NFL, anything you guys want to talk about, I'm here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, man. Greatly appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Evan Posner, a.k.a. Mr. Finstanza of the FTSN Network. Great friend of the show. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like what you heard, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to 5 Sports Now. Once again, stay safe. God bless you soon. Go Fins, go Dolphins, go Canes, go Heat, go everybody. Have a good one, guys. Bye-bye.